Coach, where are you from?
I'm from Dell City, actually.
From Dell City,
So
huh?
I'm coaching at the Big Rival.
Big rival down the street, man. Now, who gave you your first break? I always ask that question because I feel like nobody gets all of what they want or everywhere they want to get to totally alone. We need a rub or a break. Who gave you yours?
My first break I got was working for Alan Dukes at Dell City. At that time, high school coaches couldn't coach in summertime.
They could or could not?
Could not.
Oh, wow.
And so he asked me, because he knew who I was and who I played for and stuff. And he asked me one time, he said, "Would you be willing to coach our summer league team at Dell City High School?" And I said, "Sure." And so that's kind of how I started.
Man, so did you fall in love with it right away, or was it an acquired taste?
No, I'd been wanting to do that for a long time. I'd coached some junior high kids and other kids and stuff like that years earlier. So I was really anxious to get going with high school.
Now you've obviously been in the game for quite some time now. Do you ever look back at yourself, maybe not when you first started, but earlier in your tenure, like, ooh, I'm miles ahead of that guy where he was back then. Looking at your previous self versus now.
More than miles. I'm much better at what I do now than when I first started. My first job coaching with the girls at Broken Bow. I look back on what we were doing at that time and how I handled situations.
Sure.
I feel bad for those girls.
Yeah, we feel bad for them, but I'm pretty sure they're tough as boots out now, right?
They're tough.
Speaking of, that's actually a good segue into something else I always like to ask people is, what has, the times are different now, we know that. Everything from a technological standpoint, we're advanced, but have the kids changed, or has the game changed, or have the parents changed? Because I know you've been in this for a while, so you've seen different generations.
Parents have changed.
Okay.
Kids have changed somewhat just because of technology and what's out there. And the game has definitely changed a lot. And I think the game's changed for the better, as far as just the high school on Tuesdays and Friday nights. But parents have changed on expectations, and kids have changed because they have a lot more things to do.
Are the expectations higher or lower, you think?
I think they're a lot lower.
A lot lower.
And I think that for those people that have high expectations, sometimes it is an issue a little bit.
Now, is there a way that you have been able to sort of stay relevant from era to era with the changes going on? Because I've watched you and a lot of your teams, and I know sort of your style. You can be hard-nosed and up in them and demanding of what you feel the standard is in your program, which I agree with. Have you found yourself like having a barrier that you got to break through in terms of communicating with a new era type of kid?
Well, I think credibility is huge, and so if you have credibility as far as maybe past success or things like that, that probably helps. Go from group to group, year to year with all the changes. I think that's probably helps a lot. But yeah, it's tough because I am a tough coach to play for and how intense we are. But I think a lot of it is parents and kids really understand that we care about what they do, so they're able to handle. Plus, when you have success, things are a little bit easier to deal with.
Yeah, you're right, man. And as soon as you hit a little slide, then, by the way, I've been noticing this, that, and the other. Yeah. How do you deal with that? And it's actually great because you just had your parent meeting tonight, right?
Yes.
You know what I mean? And do you lay it all the way out there for them and let them know what it's going to be?
We talk about expectations, and there's some words in our locker room. I tell them about attitude, positive attitude, teamwork, dedication, discipline, all that kind of stuff. And I give them, I'm always here. If you have a question, ask, but understand when you ask me that question, I'm going to be honest with you. Sometimes people don't want honesty.
Sure.
So we have a pretty good relationship, and I open up practices. Anytime they want to come watch this practice, that way it makes, to me, when they're at practice watching, it makes them more knowledgeable. So that when we're in the games, they understand what's going on. And so I think it's a win-win situation there.
Do you have any or many that actually take you up on that invite?
Yeah, there will be, especially when we practice on a weekend.
Okay.
It's a lot easier for them and stuff. But yeah, there's parents that will show up. Grandparents show up sometimes, and it's sometimes pretty awesome.
Man, that's really good. Do you go on weekends often?
We go every weekend.
Every weekend, huh?
Yes.
It's just Saturday or Saturday and Sunday?
Well, no, we don't do 7 days a week. I mean, what I do is I leave that up to the athletes.
Mm-hmm.
They know what they're doing on weekends. They know their schedules at home or whatever, and so they let me know. They communicate. And they let me know when they want to practice. I'm not one of those coaches that we're going to practice at 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning. Heck, I don't want to get up early morning. So if we go at 2 o'clock on Saturday, or if, in a couple years ago, I had probably 5 or 6 kids that were really every Sunday churchgoers.
Right.
But their parents were there too. There were preachers, a couple of them.
Right.
So we would kind of go in between church,
Mm-hmm.
and if that didn't work out Saturday. So I just leave that up to the players. And I think the parents kind of like that also, because I'm not dictating what we're going to do on off school days.
Is there a balance between doing exactly what is asked of you if you're a player versus asking why? Because I can remember growing up as a kid. I'm a little older than today's generation of kids. There was a certain time when you didn't question authority. What was asked of you, you just did it, even if it didn't make sense to you. But nowadays, talking about that change again, I feel this generation of young people, they want to know why. And the more I think about it, the more I think they sort of have a point, because we don't want to make robots do it. We want these guys to kind of have an idea of what's happening. How have you found that fine line between the two?
Yeah, I think actually I want them to know why. To me, as an athlete, when you're an athlete and you're like a robot, you're just doing it and you're successful because you're just doing whatever that coach told you to do. Mm-hmm. Can you teach that to someone else? I want these guys to know why we're doing what we do, and the importance of what we're doing, why we're doing it, so that if they ever got to a situation when they get older, they can be good teachers of the game and they can continue a good product as far as basketball and continue what's going on, as opposed to not knowing why we're doing things, and then they get out there and they don't know what they're doing because we all know that my kids, a lot of them are going to grow up to be parents and they're going to probably have some AAU team, and I want them to be good at what they do.
For sure. And then I also think I would add to that to say, well, if they only do it your way just because Coach Bradley says it, they can only play for Coach Bradley.
Well, and that, we talked about the fact that there's a lot of ways to do some stuff.
Right.
And I tell like my assistants is the best thing that you can do is listen to other people and see what other people, and then make your decision on what you want to do.
Right. And
we talk about that. I mean, they know that we're going to do things my way, but it's a lot of fun. The way we play, our style is pretty fun to watch.
I would agree.
And it's not boring. So I think that people would be crazy not to want to coach and teach like that, to be honest with you.
Speaking of assistant coaches, would you rather, do you have a preference about having a coach or coaches who aspire to sometime run their own program, or would you say you prefer having coaches that plan on being around a while so you guys can develop that continuity?
I've had an opportunity to hire a couple of older coaches like myself that's had a lot of experience, even college experience, and I chose not to. I always want to hire people that have a hunger to lead their own program for a lot of reasons. One is I think they'll work harder, they're going to ask questions, and I think I can help them more than I can help someone like myself.
Right.
So I always want younger, people to be able to be around. Plus, relationship with kids. I mean, there's just some things that I can't relate with my 16-year-old kids now at the age of 58. Where when I have a 30-year-old or 35-year-old, they're still playing Fortnite. They're still doing, what I'm saying, Call of Duty, whatever it is.
They're still in the mix.
So I think that helps me out a lot too.
Man, and that's a marvelous thing. So there's a way to exist for as long as you have in this game. Just building that village around you.
I hope so.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about. Now, here's another thing. I was under the impression as a kid, playing in high school, that is that, and this is probably super wrong, but at that time I used to think if you were any kind of good in high school at whatever sport you played, and you for whatever reason didn't go and play in college, that was a huge disappointment. But now, having coached for a little while, I've had some players who let it be known that they weren't looking to pursue athletics at the collegiate level, but they still gave their everything and wanted to finish what they started. Have you ever had a situation where you had a player who you knew and maybe they knew as well, this kid's probably not going to go play ball in college? Did you have to go about inspiring and motivating them a different way?
I think the kids we have, they're motivated by wanting to be successful, period. And I have had athletes that when they got to that senior level situation and they had always thought they wanted to be college athletes, they just decided they just don't want to do it. And mainly that happened more when I was coaching fast pitch softball than basketball.
Right.
And so, but that's okay. I mean, college isn't for everybody. And I think that we shove that down people's throat. What's for everybody is to teach them what they want to do, and then give them the tools to be successful, whatever whether it's college, a trade, whatever it is.
Right.
I mean, now technology's huge. That's where kids should be getting into technology stuff. So yeah, I've had those athletes, and it didn't change anything that we did at the high school level.
Would you say that based on the demographic of kids that you have, that the majority of them, if they aspire to go to college, that sports would probably be their ticket from a financial standpoint to get there?
Yes. Yeah. Here, that is the true fact, yes.
And I guess that was a part of my mentality back then when I was thinking, hey man, you gotta love this. How could you not? But, not everybody's bread is buttered on the same side.
Right.
Now we gotta talk about some losses. You just got through talking to me a little bit before we turned the cameras and the mics on about the worst loss that you've endured in your career, man. I gotta snatch the bandage off again. What was that like? Who was it and how bad was it?
We got beat by almost 50 to Edmond Memorial in the finals of the Deer Creek tournament last year. We were down, we were missing a couple of starters and stuff, but they just killed us. They just hit us right in the face 50 times, and we did not respond. And it was tough. I've never had anything happen like that. But it made us better because, we had a chance to play them again to go the biggest game of the year to go state tournament, and we beat them. So, you sometimes if you take those losses and you try to make them better and understand why and understand how you feel when you lose like that, kids don't want to have that feeling again. And so we really try to practice to make them understand that we don't want to have that happen again.
Yeah. Let's stay away from that. Some experiences I can just take your word for it. But the key, the biggest key in that you said was the semifinal round. So that means you had to turn around the next day and play. How do you balance back?
This was the final. This game was in the finals.
Oh, okay.
It was in the finals.
Gotcha.
See, we had kind of rolled the other two games and beat a JV team and then beat a team from out of state that we thought was going to be good. We just killed them.
Right.
So I think we were kind of not prepared. And then once we got in that situation, it was just everything that could happen that was bad, it happened that game.
What's your process or your team's process of bouncing back from a loss? In a normal week, obviously, varsity games are on Tuesday nights and Friday nights. And so you got a couple of days in between to sort of gather your thoughts and emotionally come back together and forget about that and move on to the next. How is the practice the day after a loss?
Well, we don't worry about having to play a game in 2 days. If I think that we got beat because we weren't prepared or we weren't tough enough or whatever, the practice is not going to be good. We've had some really, really intense, physical, tough. We've even here a few times, other places I've coached at, we've gone back to gym and ran. One night, we went back to gym years ago.
On a game night.
This is on a game night. After we got clothes on, and we did loose ball drills and take charge drills, and I had kids bleeding. It was tough, but no one said one word about it. Different mindset of people.
Sure.
But it just got their attention, and the next time we had a chance to change the outcome, we changed the outcome.
See, that's what I'm talking about right there, man. Now, how tough are you to deal with when you got to come to work the next day? You got to be in the hallways. You got to be a regular person and kind of take the coaching hat off for a little bit. Has anybody ever received some residual effects that didn't necessarily deserve
My
it?
wife, I feel bad for my wife.
Oh, yeah?
She gets the blunt of when we have failure on Tuesday or Friday night. She gets to hear about it for hours at home, and the next morning, and really here I'm kind of isolated in the field house, so I don't have to see a lot of other people other than my students. Right. So it's probably a good thing.
That's probably a good thing. Now, I hate to just keep welling on you with the losses, but we're going to stay in this realm for one more segment. I can remember, I don't remember which year, and I'm pretty sure you can tap back into it better than I could. I watched you guys play in the finals. It may have been against Putnam City. It may have been, and I didn't know you at the time, but for some reason I was just rooting for you guys. Always been a fan of that style of play, and I can remember you being really, really close, and something happened to. I think you guys ended up getting a 5-second violation on an inbounds pass, and the possession changed, and you guys didn't get a chance to have the ball again, and ended up losing the finals.
We lost at the buzzer. Edmond Memorial. It was our third trip to the championship game. And we were up.
Third in a row?
The third out of 4 years.
Oh man, that's still rough. Okay.
The other two trips, we lost by 4 or 5. We just didn't make some shots.
Right.
But we played well. That particular game, we played great in the second half because we were behind, and we were up 3 with 17 seconds left to go. On the free throw line to shoot a 1-on-1, shoot 2. I'm sorry, missed both of those. Come down, they score, call timeout. We inbound the ball, and kid goes out of bounds to hit it, which is a violation, and he saves it, and they tip it in. And I've got 4 5 guards on the floor, and I had my best inbounder pass ball, just one of those freaky things, and we lost at the buzzer. So there was a lot of things that could have happened, and I still have nightmares. And that was 2012, 2013 season. I still have nightmares weekly about all the scenarios, everything that could happen that game.
What do you go in the locker room and say to a group of guys?
There was nothing. There's nothing. We're speechless. when we lose the last game of the season, most all my teams I'm really close with. They put a lot out there. We put a lot of stuff into what we do all year long, and so it's a very emotional time after the game. That game, there's just not a whole lot to say, and I had kids they just had blank looks on their face because it was such a shock that we had the game right there, and and it goes against everything that we do because we're so skilled, and just one of those things that happen.
It's the game. It can be unforgiving sometimes. Yeah. Now, in a moment like that, even though I think, correct me if I'm wrong, even basketball, the longest running season of any sport at the amateur level, correct? Yes. Maybe behind baseball if you include the summer, but
but I think from the season from October until the middle of March, it's about 5.5 months. Yeah, it's the longest season in any other sport.
And there's a lot that goes into it, and we're gearing up early, and then all of a sudden, even making it to the last game, it's just over, just like that. Yep. Now, we're not machines, so we got to take some time away to decompress and sort of be humans. How long of a process is that for you before you guys get back in the saddle after the state tournament's over?
Well, usually you have spring break, and then usually a couple of weeks, especially those couple of years we lost that game and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff that went in, and we kind of relaxed. In the springtime, we do some stuff, but we're not really intense. And then probably around the middle of April, end of April, we'll start kind of getting ready for summertime to kind of get back into basketball and stuff like that. But we kind of relax for a little bit. We spend so much. 6 days a week for 5 months, and then like in the preseason, most of these guys will stay here until 4:30, 5 o'clock anyway. So
can't get them out of here.
Yeah, can't get them out of here. So there's a lot of time that goes into it.
What's the summer look like for you guys? Are you guys all team camps only, or are you team camps and summer league?
Well, team camps. I like to go do something for a couple, 2 or 3 days, and then move on to something else. as opposed to dragging something out like in the summer league or whatever.
Right.
But we are in the gym every day in June, Monday through Friday, and then we try to go team camps like on a weekend.
Sure.
Or whatever is valuable. And then I've got multi-sport athletes, and it's amazing how those guys always find a way in the gym. Also, we make it work too.
Sure.
If they have to miss something for like a 7-on-7, that's okay. I get that. But they're always here if there's nothing going on at football or nothing going on in baseball.
I've never understood, and this is not a knock on anybody, but I just never really understood the philosophy behind not going on a Friday. Because like you said, during the summer, Monday through Friday, and that I always hear Monday through Thursday, or maybe 2 or 3 days out of the week, but Friday's never one of those days. And I'm like, well, they're probably not going to do anything on Saturday and Sunday, so why not go Friday?
I mean, a lot of my guys, they're playing AAU.
Sure.
But the good AAU stuff is usually in July.
Right.
So there's no reason for us not to do anything on Friday. And a lot of our team camps may be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or something like that. But if it's not, we're in the gym, working out for a couple hours on that Friday.
See, and I love that right there, man. Work, and I'm pretty sure the kids don't seem to have much of a problem with it. Gym rats,
they're always here.
If you got some real ones.
Right.
Now, I want to talk about ownership because then here again back to the times. I feel like a lot of where we are nowadays, from a societal standpoint, is making it to where we don't have to think as much. You know what I mean? And so what I'm gearing up to say is, have you found a way to create ownership on the players? And let me give you an example of what I mean. I can remember at at my previous spots as a head coach, I never allowed or allotted any time on the practice schedule for stretching. I'm like, fellas, you know what your body needs, all right? So if you want to show up 5 minutes before that buzzer goes off, that's on you. Or if you want to be a true student athlete, you get yourself rocking and rolling, get your blood pumping at least about a half hour before we get started. You ever do anything to that effect?
Well, with ownership, I think there's a lot of ways to do that, and I agree with that. I think that the more kids are invested in what's going on, the more success that they're going to have. And when you have those games that are going to be really, really close, a lot of that little stuff will make a difference. So like I said earlier, ownership could be, they decide when they want to practice on off school days.
Sure.
So they're figuring that out. I used to be a stickler, like if, let's say the bell rang at 2 o'clock, I'd give them just a little bit of time to get dressed, going forward. Well, then you realize here, especially now, I'm the 7th class. They've been in 6 other classes. Well, there's a lot of natural Mother Nature things that need to happen.
Absolutely.
And they need to unwind a little bit. Maybe they just had a big test today. So I've kind of gone to where we'll have about 20 minutes before we actually start practicing. And so in those 20 minutes, they need to do some stuff to help them out. Take some ownership in making their skills better, work on that left hand, making an open three, whatever else. Not just kind of messing around.
I like that. You know what? I think you may have just turned me on that, because I was a 5 minutes after the bell kind of guy. And my excuse whenever one of them would say, "Coach, we need more time on that," I say, "You all aren't girls. You know what I mean? Just change clothes and let's get on the court." But
that comes with age too, because the Dwayne Bradley of 10, 15 years ago would have disagreed totally with that.
Totally.
So
mind how we've changed, right?
Yes.
Now, from an accountability standpoint, this is something else. I mean, maybe I'm just a curmudgeon in a lot of ways, but whenever I see high-profile athletes, like special talents, my mind, after I'm, for about a moment, enamored with what they can do physically, I'm immediately questioning, okay, who's coaching this kid, and are they giving him the neon green light and just letting him do what he wants to do, or is this kid really getting tutelage? Is he really getting fussed at just like the 12th guy on the depth chart? And this is why I'm glad I'm sitting here with you, because you've had some of those caliber athletes in your program. Is there a difference in the way that you communicate with that particular kid from an accountability standpoint than the other guy?
No.
Oh, they all get it.
If they do what they need to do, then they get the positive stuff, and if they don't, when I first got here, there was a really, really talented kid that played high-level Division I basketball that I let go 2 months after we started practice, because he just didn't want to buy into what we were doing.
Wow. Was it flagrant?
He's just being a clown. He's just a clown.
Gotcha.
But when you go somewhere for the first time, you have to set the standard, the expectations. and you just can't have that. That particular person, if he were to come into the program now, he would be different. I mean, he was a good kid. He was just clown. He just didn't want to do that. But I think the better the kid is, to me, the more expectations that need to be on him. Because I tell him all the time, when you go to college, that college coach, there's 10 of you, so they're not going to care that you are whatever. And if you don't, yes. And so the great thing is I've had a lot of kids go play college basketball, and they all say the same thing. It's hard, it's harder, but we can handle everything that's going on out there. But there are other kids that can't, that come from good, successful programs, and for whatever reason. So, and I had a kid a couple of years ago. I've got one down at OU and one that was at Arkansas, and they were challenged every day in practice when they didn't hook up. More so than maybe that 14th or 15th guy, and I don't think as a coach you can ever be afraid to lose a kid. Sure. If you coach afraid to lose a kid, I don't see how you can ever succeed.
Right, and inevitably you probably lose that kid.
Right.
Leadership, though, is it important that the bona fide leader on any one of your teams be one of your better players, or does it not matter?
I think every time I get a new job, I say the same thing the first time I meet my players. One of the first things out of my mouth is if our best player, whoever that is, if our best player is our hardest worker, we're going to play for championships. And I strongly believe that every year it's the same way. If our best player is our hardest worker, we're going to play for championships. And most of the years, that's why we have been successful, because our best players have been those kind of guys.
Has y'all's relationships always been pretty good, you and whoever their best player is?
I think that we've always been on the same. I think it's important that we're on the same mindset, same understanding, same. And the ones that I've had for 2 or 3 or 4 years. And when they become that guy, they have a lot more freedom. And I make sure I put that on them, because they've earned that right to be able to do that, because I want it to be their team, and goes back to that ownership and stuff like that we talked about earlier.
They gotta have those big shoulders, man.
Yeah.
I do believe, talking about last season now, I think every year, and you can attest to this better than any, you go through your ebbs and flows, your peaks and valleys. Sometimes you start off hot, and then you may plateau for a little bit, and then you hit stride in the end. Can you remember a turning point in last season where maybe it was a particular game or an instance or maybe even a practice where you sat back and said, okay, there we are. This is what we could be. Maybe we're getting ready to turn this thing into something and kick it into high gear and turn into the team that's going to finish the season?
Well, I think because we had a couple of kids hurt, and so that hinders. I mean, we talked about what would have happened if those guys hadn't got hurt, and we would have continued to be successful. Mm-hmm. But I also think that we would have maybe been too good too early. That makes sense?
It does.
And so by having guys come back at the season, that kind of messed up chemistry. We had to kind of get that going. But there was actually 2 situations where I thought we had a chance to be special, because we played Tulsa Memorial, who was the best team in 5A, probably the best talented team in the state of Oklahoma. We played them here, and I didn't have my best player because he pulled his groin the game before. I didn't have my second best player, and I didn't have my best post defensive player. And we got beat by 11. And we were very competitive in that game.
Right.
I was so proud of the guys in the locker room. Usually we lose, I'm not happy. Sure. I was really, really proud because we played so hard, and we looked so good, and we were way shorthanded. I knew after that game that we had a chance to be special.
We're going to be all right.
Yeah, we're going to be good because we're doing things without our best kids.
Speaking of doing some of those small things, man, a good friend of mine, you may be familiar with him. His name is Josh Berry. He was the head boys coach at Muskogee for the last 7 years. He's head girls coach at Sand Springs now. And whenever I told him that I was getting ready to come interview with you about a summer or so ago, he's like, man, I've always been impressed with how he gets his guys to talk out there on the floor, particularly on the defensive end. How you do it?
We preach it every day. We do. I mean, I remember listening to Coach Hayes at OC. You know, because I'd worked those basketball camps, cage camps, and he just would get so frustrated with cell phones and how he talks about kids not communicating and stuff like that too. That that's an issue that's taking place over time because of cell phones and stuff like that. And so I feel like, you really have to really do more than what we used to have to do with before that. So I don't think that we do it very well, to be honest with you.
Wow.
I think that we need to be a lot better.
Gotcha.
But I also think that in some games, we do it pretty well. Because I think Josh does a great job. If other coaches notice that, so we must be doing something. But we communicate, we talk, and do things all the time. They repeat what I say in practices when it goes from one drill to another. I mean, just talk about how important it is.
There you go. And also it's incorporated into pretty much every segment of your practice, even transitionally. All right, that's stored into the memory bank. I got a couple other team questions. Which team would you say, since you've been here at Midwest City, was your best team? Whether that displayed in how they did that season, maybe they underachieved, maybe they finished right where they should have. Which year would you say was your best group?
My best group was that group that lost at the buzzer. I mean, we were 27-2. They just did so many things, and we played with 4 guards. A coach told me after a game that year, he said, Dwayne, it's hard to guard you because most high school teams don't have 5 guys that can play defense. And it seems like your guys just move the ball until they find that weak link, and that guy goes and scores. And all 5 of your guys can score.
Right.
That group, they were probably the best I had as far as trapping, running and jumping, running up and down the floor. I had 4 point guards out there, so our transition stuff, it didn't matter who was handling the ball, because we changed it because of that.
That's the cheat code, right?
Yeah, that helped. And we were not very big. I mean, our biggest kid was 6'3". And so, when we're in Edmond Moore, they had Shaquille Morris, who's 6'8", played at Wichita State, and they had a 6'5" and a 6'4", so that was probably the most fun team that I've ever coached, because we averaged like mid-70s, and before that, the most of the games were in the 40s and 50s and 60s. And the rule changed with the hand check about the same time that the year before that, and those guys we offensively were really, really good.
On the other end of the spectrum, which team did you have that had the most potential but underachieved?
Well, it's kind of unfair because a couple years ago I had Keyshawn Embry and Jada Redmond.
Right.
Keyshawn decided to go to IMG Academy.
Sure.
Jada Redmond decided to go play football. So that team would have probably been a state championship team had they stayed.
Right.
That team was left probably did more than what they should have. They overachieved probably as much as any team I've had. But probably the team, it might have been my first year here. I mean,
really,
I inherited some talented kids, but character-wise and everything else, distance-wise, they were not very good. And we won 18 games, and it was probably the worst year I've ever had.
Oh man, and just the worst year in terms of how you felt, or the plight of it all.
The worst on how I emotionally was attached to them. The worst on our wins and losses. Everything. They were the most selfish team I've ever coached. I mean, everything. Yeah.
And people say all the time it's more important to be respected than it is to be liked, but I think most people would like to be liked. You know what I mean? And to that you say what? Did it get to a point that year where you're like, listen, I don't even give a damn how y'all feel about me. I'm just gonna come. We're business partners.
I told them in the locker room several times they're the most selfish team I've ever coached in my life. Of course, I mean, who was I? But I was this new guy. I mean, Middle City was pretty good before I got here. We've carried that over. It's just that group was a lot different than anybody. And the ironic thing is, 2 kids off that team were kind of in the flow of that. That next year when we went to the state championship game, they changed. It wasn't me that changed. They changed and realized, this is not too bad at all.
Right.
And we had a great year because of that.
Yeah, and things start to work. I think, and you said a couple of statements ago, when things are going well, everything else seems to be a little bit easier.
It all takes care of itself.
Now, there is a bit of a misconception from, I guess, the common mind. Usually those minds are people who have not been in this business at all. Some would say that you don't really have many issues with a very talented bunch like you do with an underdeveloped group. But I happen to see it differently. I think it's like pick your poison. Which battles do you want to fight?
Right.
What are some of the struggles you would say that you have to deal with a talented group, because you seem to have many of them, many talented groups, I mean. Well, what sort of battles are you fighting?
I mean, you have, I mean, when you have kids that people are in their ears about how good they are and stuff like that, they believe that. So you have egos and things like that, which is not that big of a deal because you're still trying to. I mean, we played well together most of the time, but you have those egos. You have kids that they think they can just show up and do this and stuff like that, and you try to convince them that some kids can, but we don't want to take that chance. So I think it's hard to. Sometimes it's hard to coach great players all the time when you have a bunch of them. And especially when you have a bunch of them, because you only put 5 out there, and everybody wants to score.
Yeah.
And so you're trying to get them into that teamwork mindset and things like that. So, that's tough. I mean, if you have kids that aren't very good, you just try to make them better.
Right.
It's frustrating, but there's not a lot of expectations. And it's hard to. It's easy to me. It's easy to get to the top. It's hard to stay there after a year. And the thing that we talked about, my parents, we're the only 6A school. It's something I've taken pride in. In the 11 years I've been in Middle City, we're the only 6A school that's hosted a regional tournament every year. We're the only one. I mean,
wow.
there's great 6A teams.
A bunch.
But there's been some years when they haven't been in those top 4 spots, and they're having to go on the road to do something.
Right.
And we've been blessed to somehow win enough games and to be there at the end of the season to be one of those top 4 teams.
Now, aside from obviously being in one of the top 4 teams and having more favorable matchups, how important is it to have that home court? Would you say y'all perform well most times at home, or best at home?
Yeah, I think that we just our crowds, and our crowds are here, and they don't really travel well. Now there was an exception. We played Norman North a couple years ago when they had Trey Young, and we played at Tulsa Memorial, and that place was packed. But they were packed not to see us; they were packed to see Trey Young.
Right.
But most of the time we perform a lot better when we're at home.
Do you prefer to be at home with having, hey coach, go get him tonight, we're gonna win, coach?
The playoffs and stuff like that, yeah.
That's good stuff, man.
During the season, it doesn't matter to me. Scrimmage wise, it doesn't matter to me.
What's the biggest misconception about you that you would think there is? And I can tell you, before we ever met, I'd always peep you out there on the sidelines. He got the game face, got the scowl on, suited and booted, and the blazer comes off at some point. I said, look at Pat Riley down there, man, hooking it up. What would you say is one of the things that people may think they know about you, but they don't quite have it figured out?
Well, referees don't like me because I don't like them for the most part.
Oh, you don't like me?
Well, and this is the thing is we watch a lot of games, we see a lot of things that goes on, and when I have people that are arrogant and they're above the game, I have an issue with that.
Gotcha.
But I'm probably what you see. I mean, I'm a pretty easy guy to get along with. I really am. I mean, I'm really easy to talk to. I'm really friendly.
That's true.
But when we get into an environment that's competitive and intense, and I'm trying to be successful, I'm that guy.
That's what I say. Are you able to turn it off pretty easily? You know what I mean? Okay, so that's I can tell you've been doing it for a while. Then you got that figured out. Now off the court, what are some of the things that Coach Bradley takes interest in? Things that could occupy your leisure time whenever you're not in battle mode.
Landscaping my property, fixing things, and having fun at the casino.
There you go, man. Big money, big money. My mom's that way too. I love you, Mom, but I'm gonna say it to you. Now, we got to switch it back. I know I'm all over the place because that's just how I do my notes, Coach.
That's fine.
Now, speaking of money, in your opinion, all right, well, from your experience, not even opinion, it'd be fact. You're running a 6A program, right? That's the highest class of athletics in the state of Oklahoma. About, if you could ballpark it, how much money would you say adequately funds a 6A basketball program? It's more than just coaching basketball, so I've learned.
I think that if we there's been a lot of years we probably spent $15,000 to $20,000 if we're buying some uniforms and food and travel and things like that. Because anytime we win big games like finals and tournaments, I'll take them to, Checkers Buffalo Wild Wings or something. I mean, we try to look good. So I think that's probably a price that will probably serve us. Some places I've been, money was no object. I mean, superintendent let us buy anything we want to.
There you go.
And then some here, money is a big object. I feel bad for the parents, we just have to raise so much money.
For sure. Well, what are some of the things, again, you can go as deep into it or stay away from it as much as you want to. What are some of the fundraisers as one would call it on the most basic level that you use in your program? I'm always looking for different ways to raise money for my own program.
Well, I think one thing I don't think I do enough is like shoot-a-thons. So I think those are easy. I don't do enough of those, but fundraiser letters to where we send letters out to grandparents, parents, aunts, and uncles, anybody, and just try to donate on behalf of that student. That's
right.
Probably the most successful thing that we've done over the years.
I would agree with you, because going from door to door, knocking on them, and making a pitch with your hand out, I think that's sort of played out at this point. So the working smarter instead of harder, right? What all have you coached, Coach? We talked a little bit off camera, and you threw a couple of sports out there that I would not have attached you to, man.
Fast pitch softball. I've done that for a lot of years and been blessed to have a lot of success and coach my daughter there. Boys and girls high school basketball, volleyball, slow pitch softball, baseball at the high school level. I helped a little bit I coached football but at a lower level. And I've done track at a lower level also. Man. So I've done about everything. I've even coached wrestling at a lower level.
That's the one that we didn't talk about at that. Man, how did you stumble into these? You shared with me earlier that you were asked to take on some of these tasks.
Yes.
Did you ever just get into any of the other ones outside of basketball on your own?
Well, most the track and the wrestling, we used to have elementary athletics here at Middale schools.
Okay.
And so before I started traveling around as a head coach, I was elementary school and I was coaching an assistant at Dale City High School at that time.
Sure.
And so at the elementary school, I coached football, basketball, wrestling, track, and did all that stuff there. And then there was a few years when I would go do some of that at the junior high. But at the high school level, I've been basically a softball, fast pitch softball, basketball coach, and then before I got here, I did some volleyball because they needed someone, and I was in the gym all the time anyway.
Jack of all trades. Why not get paid for it, right?
I get paid for it.
Now we're going right back to basketball. What's a game day look like for you? Your routine and your players' routine. And and before you dive into it, I can remember when I was in high school, I was playing for Terry Scott, you know what I mean? Still my biggest mentor to this day. He would always say, hey, if you varsity only guys, as soon as we meet for 7th hour, get off campus. I don't want you sticking around here, hanging out. I'll see you at tip off of the girls' game. Right. What's your routine with your guys on the game day?
Well, during the course of the day, nothing changes. I'm teaching class, nothing changes. Now, my athletes, when it's a home game, they're dressing up. Okay. I want them to understand to dress for success. Is what we talk about. Absolutely. And they really feel good about that. And then when they come to me 7th hour, we have a pregame thing. We do the same thing every day for the hour that we have our class, or 40 minutes. We work out, we go through stuff. We do a lot of 5-on-0 stuff and kind of prepare for what we're doing. But we do the same thing on that every day. And then like you said, we eat, but then we leave. I leave. I get away from here. If it's a home game, I don't stick around here. As soon as we get through doing our thing, I go home and for an hour and a half, and I come back to watch my JV guys.
There you go.
If we're on the road, I'm going to get a bus, and we leave a little bit later because I'm usually driving the bus.
Those JV boys, is it hard to keep yourself from overexerting and when you're in fan mode during your JV game?
I still coach when I'm during the JV on the sideline and stuff like that, but it'd be better if I could just relax. But it's hard for me to do that sometimes.
Yeah, man. Well, that's when we know it's not on you, it's in you. Yeah. Now, here's another thing that a lot of people don't really think about. During the week of the state tournament, which I always anticipate seeing your teams in there, are you the type that will depart on Thursday, the day of, or will y'all get out of town on that Wednesday evening and go get a hotel and be there a day ahead to sort of get settled?
I think that we've always left on Thursday. I don't think we've ever gone a day early. I like for the guys to stay in their own beds. Because when we go to the hotel and we stay there, I don't care what, they're just different, and they're not as focused and things like that. So if we can keep everything normal for as long as possible, that's what we try to do.
I do think kids thrive in routine, and I don't think that's gender specific by any stretch of the imagination. We talked about misconceptions earlier. Now let's talk. I want to ask you something that I won't necessarily call it a misconception, but maybe something that people don't consider. Just how many hats and how many roles that a coach has to play in the kid's life. Give me a few of those. Are you coach, counselor, /blank, /blank?
Yes. I tell you what, I think, and I've talked about this, I think over the last 4 or 5 years, I think I've become more of a counselor type. I've talked and had conversations individually with my players more than I ever have.
Right.
And I don't know if I've just I've changed a little bit, or if it's just, I feel like I need to. But I remember, even some of the guys that they come back and they say, "Coach, you're a lot softer than you used to be." So that's changed. And I don't know if it's just the kids need it more. I don't know. It's just evolved, I guess you might say.
It definitely could be. And you actually said something there that makes me raise my eyebrows, because I always measure, the true mark of a coach and how good he or she was is, really kind of based on what type of relationship they maintain with their players after their players can no longer do anything for them.
Right.
Once they move on. Do you have many of them stay in touch with you or come back?
Oh, I've in the last 3 years, I think I've been to 4 weddings.
Man.
I know, on Facebook. I mean, I'm not that, but I have some kids, and whenever there's a correspondence, they always end it with the hashtag WTW, which is our thing that we have on the back of the Will to Win. So, that's made an impact. And then, at certain times, my guys would come back and, they'll still play pickup with my high school guys in summertime or whatever. And like I said, I have, a couple former players that are on my staff to help me coach. It's not like when they leave here, I'm done with them. I mean,
Right.
I stay involved, and I still see a lot of them a lot.
It's a beautiful thing, man. I got 2 more things I want to throw at you. First thing is probably a question that most coaches hate, but I'm gonna throw it at you anyway. Expectations for this year's ball club. How good do you think y'all can be based on what you have that maybe you didn't anticipate showing up, and also considering what you're bringing back from last season?
I think, we got beat in the first round state tournament last year. I lost a really good kid. But I think that if we develop a good summer, I think that we definitely could be playing at the end of the season. There's a lot of good teams just like us. And so a lot of it, when you get in the playoffs, it's matchups. Some teams we match up really, really well with, sometimes we don't. But yet it happens with other teams too. So, if we get the right matchups, we'll have a chance to play on Friday, Saturday night again. If we have a tough matchup, you just don't know.
Coin flip.
Yep, sometimes. But we have a chance to be really, really good, no doubt.
Yeah, and me having watched your program for as long as I have, I know that's not just coach speak right there. That's a real thing. So now here's my favorite segment. We'll end with this right here. I call it all due disrespect.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is, I think we all have some of those skeletons in the closet, and you talked about them a little bit earlier in this piece. We all have at least one opponent, whether it's in our playing days or in our coaching days, that got us, and they shouldn't have got us. And it still sticks in our craw. We know we were better, but for whatever reason, on that particular day, we weren't the better ones. Can you think back into the archives when a team that got you, whether it was you playing or you coaching, that shouldn't have got you?
Well, since I've been at Midwest City, probably Edmond Memorial has probably been the team that we've played each other in a lot of big games. We've played each other twice in state tournament, and they beat us both times. He's had a lot of Division I kids, and I've had a lot of great high school kids. But they probably have had our number probably more than. But the ironic thing is that coach, when I was at Chickasha, he's at Western Heights.
Oh, shame.
I was like 7-2 against his team. So it's kind of changed a little bit, different places. But they're probably that one. If there's anybody, it would probably be Edmond Memorial.
So I'm guessing that matchup, anytime y'all lock horns, does that mean a little more to you?
Yes. It meant a lot to us when we beat them this past year to go to the state tournament.
There you go, man. Coach, it's been a pleasure.
I really appreciate this.
No doubt, man. I'm glad you took time to sit down with me.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
No doubt.